You'd think that with the early success of Moss and Astrobot Rescue Mission, that the PSVR store would be flooded with third-person platformers, but that's simply not the case. So when Lucky's Tale, a 6-year-old Oculus Rift pack-in game, got announced for PlayStation VR, I was still pretty excited. I'd heard that it was a pretty by-the-numbers platformer, and that it didn't do anything particularly special when it came to VR integration. And after playing through the entire game yesterday, I can't really disagree. But Lucky's Tale is a prime example of how VR makes everything better, even when the game you're playing feels suspiciously like a kid's game. Lucky's Tale kicks off with a simple story. Your pig friend got kidnapped, but he left a trail of coins behind him showing you the way. It's all very storybook-like with a rhyming narrator, and it's also extremely brief. This is pretty much the only time the story takes center stage, meaning that the next 2 hours is all gameplay. And before you get too worried, the campaign itself is only about 2 hours if you're playing straight through without exploring too much. But each of the levels have hidden presents to find, and 2 additional modes to pad your game clock a bit. Time trials are exactly what they sound like, asking you to grab as many gems as possible and speed through a remixed version of the level at top speed. And then there's the red coin hunts, where you go through the level much more slowly, listening for the audio clues in order to snag all the hidden red coins. If you're determined to do all of this, then you'll get a lot more out of Lucky's Tale than most gamers. But be warned, because unlike the campaign itself, the time trials will make you want to rip the hair out of your head. They might be the most difficult time trials I've ever encountered in my life, forcing you to cut every corner and do every run perfectly. I'm talking practicing each one for upwards of an hour before getting it just right. And trust me, I know how this sounds. I'm complaining that the campaign is way too easy and now the time trials are way too hard. It sounds silly, but trust me, there's no in between here. So if you're going for the platinum, be prepared for some punishment. But the core of Lucky's Tale is the campaign, and luckily it does almost everything you'd want for a standard third-person platformer to do. It looks great with sharp, colorful environments and a draw distance that allows you to see sometimes to the end of the level. Plus, Lucky himself animates well, and has a moveset similar to Crash Bandicoot, with a spin attack, double jump, the ability to take out enemies by landing on their heads, and the ground slam. The similarities to Crash don't end there though, because at least once per level you're taken to an underground area that plays more like a side-scroller. These are a nice change of pace, and I love the dramatic shift in scale. It's interesting to note that developer Playful Studios isn't scared to move the camera in Lucky's. Rather than having a static camera like in Moss, or a very rigid camera that only moves slowly forward like an Astrobot, Lucky's moves left, right, up, down, and even pulls towards you as you backtrack through a level. This is so refreshing, but I will say that even though the camera is almost exactly where you want it to be, I was still wishing I could swing the camera around and have full control with the right analog stick. Lucky's Tale might get criticized for being too derivative, and it's hard to disagree with that. Almost everything here, from all the typical level tropes to the hazards and the gameplay itself, can be found in a myriad of other platformers spanning the last 30 years or so. But none of this really bothered me as I played through, because in VR, I enjoyed the charming visuals, the bouncy music, and the sound effects in a way that I just wouldn't have on a flat screen. What did bother me, however, were 2 main issues. First, the difficulty is practically non-existent. You'll go multiple levels without ever dying, and even though I did lose a life here or there, you collect so many extra lives along the way that it's never an issue, meaning that time trials are really the only place you'll ever encounter a meaningful challenge. And the other issue, and I'm hoping this is just a bug that the developers can patch, is that the DualShock 4 never once vibrated during my entire playthrough. No pitter-patter of Lucky's footsteps, no rumble after getting hit by an enemy, no reaction at all when the environment changes right in front of you. It's a sensation we all take for granted, and I barely ever talk about it in reviews, until it's not there, and its absence makes the whole experience a little less impactful. After seeing all the reviews of Lucky's Tale on other platforms, I thought I was in for a snooze fest. But Lucky's is a great little platformer that, although geared toward kids or casual gamers, really is fun for everyone. Some more challenging platforming, a lengthier campaign, more difficult bosses, and some feedback from the controller could have pushed Lucky's into must-have territory. But even as is, it's still a good time and might be worth checking out.